Blessed day, Earth family. Welcome back to another week, another Friday in the Martial Mystic 2026 calendar series. Monday, Mental Health Monday, we talked about um, mind and we tried to define mind. And we looked at Dr. Dan Siegel and he told us that the mind, working definition, not agreed upon it among all fields of study, but his offering as interpersonal neurobiology would claim it to be. The definition of the mind is embodied and relational, self organizing and emergent process that regulates the flow of energy and information. In Tai Chi Tuesday, we looked at this embodied and relational part, how the mind is this sort of intangible aspect of existence, in the same way that Chinese scholars looked at there's a material aspect of existence and an immaterial aspect of existence, the yin dimension and the yang dimension. And to state it clearly, the yin dimension, or the mind, we could say, is a characteristic and aspect of this yin dimension. We know it's there, we can feel it, sense it, and interface with it. At the same time, it's not material in the same way that the material world, material realm is tangible and touchable, but we still sense it and we still are connected and interface with it in some way. And then we talked about how Wuji, Tai Chi, and Yin Yang provide a lens and a layer here as well, where mind is relational in that a mind can be shared between a parent and a child, in that the parent is imparting knowledge and culture and education to the child. So there's this aspect of collective mind also within the family as well, could be within an organization or a community, and culture sort of kind of represents this um, foundation of mindset, values, principles, philosophy, what have you. And from that, what we get is healthy mind, healthy relationships, and basis for well-being, which brought us into Wellness Wednesday and looking at the characteristics of an unhealthy relationship, characteristics of an unhealthy mind is can fall into two categories based on Dan Siegel's um, theory, interpersonal neurobiology: chaos. And so in the individual self, chaos is disharmony between mind and body, and then also rigidity, again, another disharmony of chaos and rigidity, and how they sort of present sort of two sides or two manifestations, but at the same time a spectrum. Chaos and over chaos can just turn into closed down rigidity. Rigidity where I kind of liken it to analysis paralysis. Can't do nothing. The thought and the thinking is fixed and immovable. So there's no action until finally you spring into action, right? So this we also get is the aspect of yin yang as well. Yin yang does the same thing. It reaches a point where it can't peak anymore, and then it has to oscillate and go to the next. So yang, 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 and yin, 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 and then yang. So then we went to Thursday, Resolution Thursday, and we looked at how to use this foundation of differentiated parts coming together for wholeness and for linking, for um, coherence, for resilience. And then what we're going to talk about today is flow, right? So that's all leading up to today. And today, for Fearless Friday, we will look at how all of that basis can help us in managing what we think we might be afraid of, or what we perceive to be afraid of. So something that I've been looking at in the past few years is this idea that it's not our darkness that scares us the most, but it's our light. And so this is something I've been meditating and contemplating with for a good minute now. And I have two people that have given us some insight into this. So we have the originator of this was Marianne Williamson. She she came about with this poem from her contemplation of the Course in Miracles, and she wrote an extensive poem that has a lot of respect worldwide. And and the important thing is how we kind of interpret it. So a little bit of the let's look at the poem a little bit here, okay? So it's not our deepest fear that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. We look at why that is, and what she proposes. Our deepest fear explores the paradoxical nature of human fear, suggesting that we are more afraid of our own potential for greatness than our inadequacies. And this powerful poem challenges the common assumption that people fear weakness, instead asserting that what truly frightens us is our own potential for greatness. So it's an interesting concept. I'll share with you also what Marshall Rosenberg says. And Marshall Rosenberg is the author of NVC, Nonviolent Communication. And he says that his argument is that humans are often more terrified of their own light, their capacity for compassion, power, and beauty, than their own shortcomings. And he says in NVC, this relates to the difficulty of expressing our deepest needs and divine qualities without the shield of punishment or self-deprecation. So let's double click on that um, for a second. He says that he says every judgment is a tragic expression of an unmet need. We use judgments because we haven't been taught how to identify or value our internal light, our divine energy, and human needs. He calls it the tragic expression. And he continues by saying expressing a deep need feels risky because it can be met with a no. We have that fear of rejection. By using judgment or self-deprecation, we diminish the importance of our need before anyone else can reject it. So we safeguard our needs so as to not put them on the table and say, this is where we're at. This is where we're at. Because then we could be exposed. And then finally, he says, we're often raised in king slave cultures where thinking in terms of right and wrong is prioritized over human connection. This makes the language of needs feel weak or childish rather than powerful. So, all this is very interesting to me, still studying and still trying to get a grasp on it. How does this relate to Wuji, Tai Chi, Yin Yang, right? When we look at the 10,000 things, right? Distraction, chaos, pinpointing what is what. Understanding, though, that everything is interconnected and has a main source. Like we are all one, we each have a divine plan, God's plan. Let's look to God, see what God's will is. What's our Buddha nature? What is our Buddha's? Everyone has the potential of Buddha nature, right? And yesterday we looked at Dan Siegel's presentation in which he said that humanity, we're in this point where humanity has possibly forgot and brainwashed itself to thinking it that the self is only limited within the skin. And so his proposal is that the self is actually larger. The self is more. And while coexistence can seem messy, clash, rift, strife, dispute, conflict, theoretically, we can trace down to a simple theory that two is one and one is two. And we talked about the vision of, in Resolution Thursday, we talked about the vision of conflict within this space of um, no extremity, infinite potential, and how Wu Ji is our origin and it's our destination as well, eternal bliss and peace, where theoretically all of our conflicts and all of our suffering is resolved at Wu Ji. And when we see yin yang and we understand um, yin yang, in order to balance the yin dimension and yang dimension here, we have to maintain that vision, the idea that Wu Ji is always present as well. We always have a connection to Wu Ji. We always have a connection to Source. So this brings about this idea of power, power beyond message that our light represents. So Marianne Williamson, the author of the poem, argues that our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure instead of being inadequate. And so she challenges us, the tendency to shrink or play small to make others feel secure is not enlightening. It's only diminishing oneself. It's only covering the light. And that every child is a child of God. So allowing our own light to shine, we unconsciously give others the permission to do the same, and our liberation from fear automatically frees those around us. Let me know what you think about this idea of liberation from fear, but also this aspect of self. And if the self is not is if the self is not just limited beyond the skin, self is everyone. Self is all of the 10,000 things. And so in order to but we are right now in one body. We can regulate, and we have the capacity to regulate this one body. In the past couple of weeks, we talked about regulating the field, how regulating ourselves can help influence the field around us. So, what about this concept, this idea about division? What if division is okay? What if division is normal? Splitting is normal. Tai Chi, um, the energy of Tai Chi brings us from Wuji to Yin Yang. The spiral brings us from Wuji to Yin Yang, but the spiral also, which is Tai Chi, takes us back to Wuji. So the spiral is in between as a function of nature and nature's template. Tai Chi is the creative and also the death template from Wuji to Wuji. And so division, all the 10,000 things, they finally come together. Everything comes together. So maybe division is not wrong. Maybe polarization is not wrong. Maybe it's in our nature. And and so Dan Siegel talks about health and well-being. Health and well-being is the integration of differentiated parts. And yesterday we talked about how organization is connected to regulation. So as long as we can, two hands can function as one, 2 feet can function as one, breath and mind and body can function as one, we start to get this aspect of coordination, coherence. And for some people who practice that on a daily basis, they finally enter what's called a flow state. Flow state's very interesting. Can we achieve the flow state here, one, in the body, in our own bodies, and then two, interpersonally? And so on Thursday, in Resolution Thursday, we talked about going beyond conflict, beyond the self. And in order to do that, we have to circulate um, what Buddhism would call ill will, greed, delusion, because those impair, one, body and mind, also two, relationship, because mind is shared. Mind is shared. And so now it's incumbent for each mind to regulate itself, each body to regulate itself, and coordinate regulation organizationally in the family, in the community, hopefully, in the world. Let's look at this talk that I think is really um, interesting, and came across it along the same lines. Let me know what you think, and we can discuss it more.
Individually powerful it is overwhelming and hard for us to look in the face. And that I think that we are so individually powerful, it is overwhelming and hard for us to look in the face. And that I really believe the quote that I think is falsely attributed to Maya Angelou, which is that we are not afraid of our darkness, it is our light within that scares us. And I think that's true. And so if that's true, then I think we have sort of a moral obligation to attempt to help architect the world that we think should exist. And so influence is really important to me because I think there are so many influences on us, so many influences telling us that we can't, that it's not impossible, but for you it is, that, you know, you're not capable of it. And so we need a counterbalance to that. And so I find a unique joy in getting people to actually believe that they are more capable than they think they are. And perhaps the reason for that is I was surrounded by that as a kid. I mean, I have the most incredible family. I'm close with all of them, and all of them continuously supported this belief that I could do whatever I wanted in life, that I should try to do things that make you a good person, even and especially when nobody's watching, but that I was capable of it. And so because I was capable of, or I heard that so early, I think I've just been able to, it's like when you see The Matrix, you know, in that movie, like the first time that he saw it, you can't like unsee it. You
Yes.
can't take it back.
Yes.
And so once I kind of saw through The Matrix and I was like, wait a second, I can put my finger on the scale and materially affect the outcome of this thing that exists in the world around me. Well, I'm not that special because I know what's going on in here. So why couldn't somebody else put their finger on the scale too? And then what happens if we all put our fingers on the scale? And that I think is really uniquely powerful. I think that we are so individually.
What happens if each of us can all put our finger on the scale and come together with collective resolution? I would I would offer the idea of of a flow state, right? So when we go back to the idea of mental health and wellness, and we talk about the bottom up approach to wellness with Qigong and Tai Chi, then we if you practice Tai Chi out there or even yoga, you understand jogging, bicycling, you're looking for a feeling. You're looking for um, you're looking for a place where the brain is releasing a mix of chemicals that produce pleasure. Your um, self-reflection, your inner critic temporarily lowers its activity, and the the balance between high skill and high challenge makes the activity engaging and fulfilling rather than stressful. And because you're fully absorbed, you lose track of time, you lose track of ego, which removes the pressure of worrying or performance or judgment. And in this state, you have a balance of sympathetic focus and parasympathetic relaxation. This, my friends, is the flow state. So, our exercises, our practices are trying to get us to what we would call the flow state. And we know subjectively how that feels. And Qigong would tell us that we're trying to build the conditions to have this sense of feeling of nourishment and health and healing. So, my proposition is how can we do that interpersonally? This is where now I feel interpersonal neurobiology can come in. This is the basis of yin yang tai chi for me. Why I call it also transcending the divide. Yin yang tai chi, I call a peace movement, literally. If you didn't know, there's actually a movement um, where you do yin yang. One person does yang, one person does yin. So I don't have the video here, but this is a good reflection of that image where two people can share space with one another, offer energy exchange in a balanced way, and communicate and coexist, reinforcing harmony and differentiating and linking differentiated parts. If we go back to the concept of two as one and one as two, what is the difference between this image and this image here? Not this one exactly, but this one here, right? So when two people are in harmony, or two people are pursuing harmony to transcend the divide and sense and feel that feeling of Wu Ji, is it possible that our conflicts, disputes, our stressors can be resolved? I propose that Yin Yang Tai Chi allows us to download nature's intelligence, embody nature's intelligence for the sake of connection, communication, and harmony. Yinyangtaichi.org starts to put you on the path of the uh, individual path of this modality. And then we start to get into the partner aspect of it. More information here. You've got an ebook there available for $14.90, $14.49. Let me know what you think. I'd love to get feedback. And I'm just really excited to be sharing this information with you. That's it for today. Fearless Friday. Flow over fear. Let me know what you think. Remember, embrace the woo and may your chi flow smoothly.